of the game. So let's break it up for questions here. I'm going to finally bring up the chat. I'm totally sorry I was not able to check it out last time, but let's bring it up to questions. All right, there's a lot of questions. And I'm going to have to go through these very quickly. So I apologize. I'm gonna ask for questions right after this Tatalex that's D comment. If you had a question earlier, feel free to repost it and I'll try to answer it as soon as I can. Yep, it's questions time. I know there's a delay in Twitch, sorry. I should probably write it down. In the meantime, I'm going to be switching the slides a little bit in all the kind of resources that I personally use. Here are the game engines list. These are the ones that I was told to, I was recommended from. Hello from Schenectady. Hi from Schenectady. Hi from Troy. I actually live in Schenectady. Anyways, these are the game engines that I was told to kind of recommend. Construct 2, again, there's no programming in here. Here's a question for you, Tech. What sort of food and beverages we have at the ready? That's a good question. At the time, I had eel and Japanese curry because I'm Japanese. Yeah, your favorite cafe. Yeah. I actually don't drink coffee. I'm sorry. Food. Anything that is quick and easy to make. If it's something like you can pop into an oven or if you can pop into a microwave and have it done within minutes, those are the kind of perfect food that you're going to want. Anything that tastes good, to be completely honest, and anything that is healthy. Salad is actually not a bad idea. You take it out of the fridge and you eat it. So, you know, that's a good idea to take as well. Honestly, in this case, time is going to be your most important resource. So when it comes to food, you want to make sure that you're consuming food that is very quick to make. Sandwiches is also a great idea. Is 38 hours going to be enough for a lone developer? Yes. Yes, I can say this with a passion. Yes. Old school location is teaching something on Scratch. That's good for younger children. If you're like in high school, Construct 2 is going to be the better one. It's a lot more flexible. How many hours remaining should we stop developing and start playtesting? Okay, this is going to be different for everyone. For Compo specifically, you want to make sure you have at least 4 hours for playtesting because at that point, polishing becomes a lot easier. And you also have those 2-hour buffer where you had to compile everything anyways. But I personally recommend more than 4 hours from the deadline. That's my recommendation. You are right, playtesting is going to be important. If you have like 2 guys that's both doing compo and one of them is like, I need playtesting right now or I need feedback right now, you're ultimately taking time away from the second guy. Jamie was just talking about this, so be careful about not doing that. That's true. You should start playtesting right away. I take back what I said. I agree with Tom Hunt on this. Should we add feature one at a time or throw them all in, then fix bugs? Okay, that's a good question. I favor the put them all in and then start fixing bugs, but I should actually clarify. I recommend both. what I mean to say is I would recommend putting in one feature at a time. You want to treat features as if they're prototypes. That is, you want to put in the feature, you want to test to see if it works, forget about all the bug fixes that you had in mind, forget about any bugs that are in there. You want to have that feature in there and make sure it actually helps the game. If it doesn't, then no harm, no foul. You can take it out easily. So you want to add in feature one at a time and make sure that each one progressively improves the game. But like I said, you want to treat it like a prototype. You want to make that feature as fast as possible and worry about bug fixes until towards the end of the game. Second request for making these slides available online, please. That is a good point. Computer specs. Anything? Heck, you're allowed to make board games. Here we go. I'm going to paste it out into the chat there. Best tool for communication with team. If you're working remotely, Skype is good. Google Hangout is really good. You want to really be able to get that face-in-face, real-time conversation as much as possible. What tools do you recommend for easily creating music? That is not my talent, so my answer is going to be terrible. But personally, I used what is it called? GarageBand for the iOS because it was really cheap, and I think I got it for free. So it was really cheap to use that. What is the easiest way for a non-musician to get good enough music into the game? And should you have placeholder music? Yes, you should have placeholder music. I've mentioned earlier GarageBand. GarageBand has a bit of a music generator kind of system to it, so that's what I recommend. What is the easiest? What is the tools you recommend? Monitors are helpful too. Yeah, monitors are kind of necessary. Let's see, game engines, graphics for 3D. Somebody posted Project SFXR. I use BFXR. It's pretty much the same thing. Both are incredible when it comes to generating sound effects. For graphics, I recommend Blender. This is for 3D, excuse me. For 2D stuff, there's GIMP right there. There's Paint.net, Sprite, which is the one I heard everyone use. What is your view on randomly generated music in compo games? Lame? No, of course not. It's fine. I don't mind using randomly generated music. The most important thing is you want to make sure that it makes sense in context. That's about it. I want to know your computer specs. That's a good question. I think this is just a dual-core Windows 7 laptop. Photoshop is amazing. Yeah, if you can afford it. Sprite. Speaking of graphics, I'm going to say a lot of awesomeness to Krita and MyPaint. That's kind of my favorite. I have this really bad love-hate relationship with Photoshop because it's so hard to use at times. But Krita and MyPaint are one of those applications that are completely free and open source that honestly feels like they're made to actually make artwork instead of editing images. For graphics, here are some tools I recommend. Blender 3D Tin is one that I found from the Reddit Pocket Knives. I haven't actually used it, but I heard it is better. And Make Human is, I heard, pretty darn good. It to actually make human avatars But it is a generator. I believe it's perfectly allowed for compo, so I highly recommend that. Audio, I mentioned I use BFXR, Audacity, LMMS. LMMS is also great for music composition, so I highly recommend that. Coding on a full bladder is 90% more efficient. That is a good question. You are right. Oh, Inkscape. I'm sorry, I completely forgot. Inkscape is a good one too. Audio. Here are some gem resources that I was displaying in the beginning. I personally recommend all of these. If you're in Compo and you need fonts, Open Font Library is great. Mike earlier mentioned Google Fonts as also recommended resources. We've discussed this earlier, but yes, you're allowed to use fonts for Compo, outside resources for fonts, because we can't expect you to make all those letters. So take a deep breath. You're completely allowed to use those. I highly recommend it. Kevin MacLeod is already the more famous one that's already mentioned in the chat. DST is actually really good too. That's from nosoapradio.us. I highly recommend that. So quick note about Inkscape. Inkscape is for vector art. This versus GIMP, which makes bitmap. If you're using a library that's more for vector, like Flash is one of those, it is, yes, recommended to use something like Inkscape instead. I think I did misspell ASAP right, so I'm sorry about that, my bad. Let me see if I can fix that right now. I'm ashamed of myself. Here. Pretty darn sure. Oh, I'm gonna keep that there. Yep, it's Asus Bright. My bad. The font is a usable font site. I do not know. Haven't heard of that one. Yeah, Seltzer here says GIMP is to Photoshop as Inkscape is to Illustrator. That's actually a really good description of it. Photoshop again makes bitmap images, whereas Illustrator creates vector art. If you don't know the difference between the two, chances are very good you're going to want GIMP instead. But if you know, for example, you're using Flash and that uses a lot of vector art, then you want to start using either Illustrator or Inkscape. If Mike is always going to say that, we should just bring this up all the time. It's at $883 per month, so guys, you gotta work harder on this. We gotta give him more money for Ludum Dare because we need to help him out on this, man. What is Tech Valley Game Space? I'm near Tech Valley, even went to for Microscope and Cell Tour at high school. Tech Valley Game Space is a co-working office. We have a lot of indie game developers working here, and they basically spend the time to just kind of make games and so forth. We are here to help cultivate a community of game developers, both professional, hobbyists, students, etc., and create a stronger bond between us to kind of let them know what kind of events are happening and so forth. We have this space available right now. I don't have a webcam up and it's going to be hard to set one up, so it's going to be hard to show off this office. But we do have a co-working office here and it's for the most part open. You just have to ask for us for the, you just have to call one of us to see if we're actually in the office and you can just kind of walk in. Senpai noticed. So we do, by the way, this is one of the physical locations available for Ludum Dare. If you want to, actually, even for Compo, I do recommend checking it out because it's a lot better working in a group than alone, even if you're making your own game and not with other people. I personally make my own games solo, but I've been using this space to really socialize because it's very lonely trying to make a game by yourself, and that's one thing that I actually kind of suffered from during Ludum Dare Compo. So regardless of whether you're doing Compo or Jam, I highly recommend checking out a physical location because it gives a very big moral boost in doing so. Would it be possible for a child to join? And if so, would I join in? Also, you just have an office that people work at and communicate in. Would it be possible for a child to join in? Yes. And if so, how would I join in? Walk into the office. We're open for Ludum Dare. Ludum Dare starts at 9 o'clock Eastern time. 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, but you're free to walk in. We have the event starting up at 7 o'clock because I'm trying to make this into a very I'm trying to help people step through the process of making games. So I'm going to need the extra 2 hour buffer to really help orient people, go over the rules and so forth. But yeah, just walk in at 7 o'clock here at the location. Address is, I'll type it also down, 291 River Street at Troy, New York. We're at the 3rd floor. Yes, that's a good point. The keynote mentioned this as well, but it is a good idea to post your progress every once in a while. When you feel like it's taking up a lot of time or you want a little break, then I would recommend spending that time taking a screenshot of your game and posting onto the Ludum Dare WordPress blog and say, hey, this is my progress so far. That's all you need to write. It starts perfect. Any other questions? It is 7:58 right now. And I may close this in 2 minutes, 1 minute. I'm going to repost the slides again because I suspect this is going to be very important. Can you post alpha version? I don't understand what you mean by that. Any room number or specific building? Tech Valley is huge. Troy is pretty darn big. Also, is it like you can stay overnight or have it come back for? No. Okay, so in regards to Tech Valley Game Space, where the office is, the room number, it's kind of ambiguous. I think it's like the room number is 321 or something like that. Third floor has a unmissable Zelda Wind Waker poster on the door. Upload the alpha version of the game before competition finishes. Yes, and I recommend it. Okay, I get it now. Merchel just recently asked a question asking whether we should just post an early build on the website. And yes, I cannot stress this enough. I highly recommend doing that. Sure, it's taking up a little time for compiling's sake, but what you do have is in a huge emergency scenario where suddenly like your game explodes, you lost all the source code, so on and so forth, you still have the alpha up. And that while that means that you have basically a not so good game up there, it's better than not having any game at all. Empirico asked, do I need to go back and come back later? Yes, we're open until We're open until midnight, and then we open at 10 o'clock in the morning. I spelled Murchell's name right, and I may have butchered it now. Darn. I wish I could meet with you guys. I don't live close enough now. Yeah, Goldmine. Thank you for being a good fan of us. Compile time takes mere seconds for me. That's good. Also, is it bring your own computer? Yes, it is a good idea to bring your own computer. Not a good idea, not just a good idea, we don't have enough donor computers at this point. I think like Anthony is going to use the only Windows laptop that's actually pretty darn good. We have a donor iMac computer that is the oldest thing I've ever seen, so I don't recommend making games on that. Yes, bring your own laptop when you're coming into the Tech Valley game space. Yeah, Mike here mentions that it's a good idea taking a snapshot game code as you work. I should mention this. I recommend using version control if you know how to use one. SVN is the easiest I've used. Also available. Excuse me. Tortoise SVN is freaking amazing. Dropbox has a capability of allowing you to rewind your history so that in the case you deleted a file by accident, you can recall it through the web UI. It has a very limited history though. I think it stores up to like the last 20 changes, so there's that to keep in mind. These are really good questions. Thanks for asking them. I'm sorry I wasn't able to scroll back earlier and see what kind of comments were going on. I needed a whole full screen to show off the presentation. Yeah, Mike says you should set up a version control before Ludum Dare. If you haven't used one, I do recommend that. I use Mercurial. If people have looked at it earlier, then I was actually taking out Tortoise HG earlier. You may have heard that Git is a better one or that kind of stuff. No, don't bother. I personally recommend starting off with SVN because conceptually it's a lot simpler. It's a lot easier to use in comparison. I did not know that file history or Windows. I did not know that file history exists. How's Toaster Simulator progress for 3 days? That doesn't sound like a Ludum Dare question, but I'll check it out soon. And give you a comment later on it. Alright, it's 8:05. I'll be closing shop in about a few minutes. By a few minutes, probably at 8:10ish, so that I can start working on making a highlight of this video on Twitch. Cashew Dev says lol at don't bother. I'm saying don't bother specifically to the people who haven't used it, version control. If you have used version control before, then yes, you want to look into the other options. But these are kind of things that you have to kind of prepare for. And especially like you're looking at these right at the moment of the event, then I personally cannot recommend the other two. Okay, yeah, thanks for the extra information about file history. Thanks. Maybe at some point during the Ludum Dare 48. LD Jam. Yep. Sounds good. I think both are fine, Jam Compo. So it's good to hear that you're taking on the Compo. I'm Perico. Actually, with SVN, like, Jamie had this experience right now. He was trying to teach how to use SVN with a bunch of people who never used a version control before, and he was struggling with it too. So I can only imagine how much worse it is when using Git. Because Git has way too many commands. Oh, here's a crazy one. If you're not using any artworks or music in your game, and it's all entirely code, then I recommend Fossil because that is amazing. But nobody uses Fossil as far as I can tell. It was the best version control I've ever used that constantly crashed on me. Yep. Cashew Dev says Git is not easy if you have no experience in source control. I'm probably reiterating that point, so I'm not going to bother commenting on that any further, but yeah. Goldmine says he or she thinks that he'll be joining Compo. No problem. Thanks for coming to the presentation from the first place. I love all the questions that you've had, Cashew Dev. GitHub isn't hard as it seems. There are great docs, and unless you gotta go deep into it, it's fine for LD. Specifically, if you're looking at the following 4 commands, the commands I'm thinking right now are commit, push, I want to say pull. I forget the other one. No, is it pull? Pull, fetch, and merge. No, it's fetch. Yes, fetch and merge. If those are the only things that you're being concerned with, I do see your point. And honestly, that reminds me, like, in source control, normally, if you're the kind of guy that goes branch crazy, I don't personally recommend it. There really isn't a very good reason to do that. Actually, there are plenty of good reasons. I take that back. But I personally never have gone branch crazy during jam events. I was more concerned with having something working. So there's that. My Twitter is at Omiya Games. Thanks for asking. Commit, push, pull, merge. I guess because fetch is not what I was thinking it was. I don't remember now. Darn it. There's so many commands in Git. Excuse me. I'm sorry. All right, it's 8:10. I'm going to cut off the stream at this point. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you guys a great Ludum Dare.